bit. Welcome to Stamp with Teah. I am Teah Woodward, an independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up, and I am located in Vancouver, Washington in the United States. I've been a demonstrator for 3 years, and I can't imagine not doing this. I love it. I love everything about it. I love the crafting. I love sharing it with others. I love playing with new products that I've never done before. I love learning the new techniques. I just love it all. So the one thing I don't love is water in my crafting room, and that's why I'm late. I keep, as anybody who watches me know, I have a bit of a chronic cough, and I keep a glass of water next to my station where I am filming at, and about a half an hour ago I knocked that glass of water right over, and thankfully it did not hit my samples, but it did hit my cut cardstock, so I had to recut. So that was not fun, but I think I've got it all. I hope I do. If I don't, you'll probably be right there. Hi, Cheryl. Oh, yeah, right? Like, it's just so much fun. Thank you for making that comment. It is an absolute blast to be a demonstrator. I'm glad that you said that. Thank you. So I have 3 cards I'm going to share with you today. I am super excited about them. I personally have a passion for pine cones. I always have. I like to decorate with them in my holiday decorating. And I took these cards up a notch. I'm super excited about it. So there's one card that is specifically a stamped design, and the others are more playing with the die cuts. All of them have heat embossed labels. So I have pre-cut, pre-embossed. If there's an embossing folder, I've pre-embossed it. If there is heat embossing, I've already heat embossed it. That's just so I can, because these are little stepped up cards, and so I really wanted to kind of keep things going a little bit, but I will tell you what my process was as I get to each one. I just am not going to make you wait while I sit there with my heat emboss tool, heat embossing 3 different sets of sentiments, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera down. Thankfully, my backdrop wasn't down yet when the water spilled, so I know that this tabletop is safe. Anyway, I could go the rest of my life without that happening again. All right, turning the camera down. So 1 minute while everything gets just a little bit. There we go. And look at those schmancy cards. And I might have to adjust my, let's see, maybe not. It actually is looking pretty good. So this is the one card that I'm going to stamp. But you can see that I've used the same trims on everything, same colors on everything to make this set go together really well. So what is fun about these cards is, so this is a free class, and if you end up making a purchase through my online store, I will send a purchase of $35 or more. I will send you the kits to make these classes. I cannot do any stamping for you. So for instance, I can send you this die cut, but you'd have to stamp your own image. That's a Stampin' Up rule. I can send you the cardstock for this, but you would have to stamp your own images. So just letting you know that up in advance. But an order of $35 or more, and I will send you not only the kits to make these, but I'll send it times 2. So you will have enough to make 2 of these, 2 of these, and 2 of these. So I hope that is exciting to you. And that includes like the layers for the inside as well, and the envelopes. Isn't that fun? I just love these cards. Okay, so I am going to start with this one. Set some stuff out of the way here. And this is upside down. Just realized I didn't have my grid paper, but thankfully it was within reach. That is one of the benefits of having such a small space that I craft in. All right, so I'm gonna give you an idea of what I've used in this card. I've used oh wow, there. Oh, thank you. Oh, wonderful. Yeah, absolutely. Please do case. Absolutely. So I'm using very vanilla background. I am the back shadow of the fir branches is soft succulent. The pine cones underneath this shimmery white layer, these are gold foil. And then the shimmery white layer is the Glimmer 12 by 12 inch specialty paper. The stamps, let's see, I'm not using the Christmas season stamp set on this one, but I am using, these are the Christmas Pinecone dies. And then for my sentiments and for the label on the front, I'm using the Brightest Glow bundle. So here I've pulled in the Merry Christmas, and I gotta tell you, look at this. Look at how beautiful that is in gold heat emboss. Isn't that beautiful? And then the sentiment on the inside is from that as well. So that's the supporting characters in here, as well as the ribbon is, I'm telling you all this up front because I'm gonna forget at the end, is satin edged ribbon. Okay, and the card base is, if you open this up, this is 11 by 4 1/4 scored at 5 1/2, and it is a side fold card. The card front, so that I've applied all of my die cuts to, is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. It's just a skosh smaller than the dimensions of the card. All right. So I'm going to get out my card base, which I have already cut and scored, but I have not burnished it. So I'm going to burnish that real quick. Now, these die cuts, if you use the full size, they take up darn near that whole 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. So I actually just cut a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 when I ran them through to be die cut. So I've now burnished my card base. I have a kind of a mess over here. Well, not a mess, but a little bit. Like I said, there was an accident. So getting everything recut, or the pieces that had to be, which was more than I wish. I didn't clean up everything. Let's see. All right. I'm pretty sure, yep, there's my card front. All right, so I am here, I have pre-die cut the shadow, and when I say the shadow, I mean, when you look at these dies, you'll see one, well, you can't tell because I didn't have time to clean out my dies because of recutting everything. These are the die cut, this is the detail die cut, and normally these are all knocked out holes. As you can maybe tell that well, definitely happens. Yeah, right? It sure does. Anyway, but this one has a less detail. and a lot more opaque. That's what I'm calling the shadow die. And then this is the detail die. Hopefully I'm not confusing anybody. So what I did is before I adhered this to my card front, I went ahead and adhered my pine cones to the top of the shadow, and they actually line up. Oh, I didn't point that out. So here's that shadow pine cone. Here's that big shadow that I mentioned, but here are just the pine cones, and here's the detail cuts for just the pine cones. So there's lots of options of things that you can do here. I cut out just the shadow portion, and it actually fits, and let me see if I can pull this up. It lines up exactly with this bigger die. So you can adhere these directly over, and that's what I'm about to do. And I'm just going to go ahead and use my multi-purpose adhesive, being careful to not put too much on there, so I don't want it to squish out. And laying that right on there, and then I'm going to pick it up and pull it closer to my eyes so that I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to hold that for just a second while that adhesive firms up, and it's already firming up. I'm going to do all 3 of the big pine cones first, and then I'll go back and I'll do the small pine cones. So I have always had a love of pine cones, all different kinds, not just fir or noble or sugar cones, I love them all. I love to do crafts with them. I love to use them in my decorating. One year, this was a long time ago, too many years for me to, well, let's say it's over 20. My daughters and I, or 2 out of 3 of them were there. We sat around and we used raffia and tied pine cones to the raffia and made pine cone garland. And my daughter, one of my daughters, still has that pine cone garland and uses it on her family Christmas tree. So pine cones just mean a lot to me. It makes me, I mean, like, I can literally just smell every hike I've ever taken when I see a pine cone. And I don't know, I just think warm, fuzzy thoughts. And I'm actually going to do an overlay right over the top of all of this. I used to live in Southern Oregon, and we did a lot of hiking and such when I lived down there. And now my husband and I live in Vancouver, the Vancouver, Washington area. And so we have Mount St. Helens or Mount Hood basically in our backyard. And we love it. As soon as we get up high enough to smell the pine cones, we both are just happy as can be. So I am just applying that gold to the pine cones portion of the detail die. One more to go. And I'm just going to apologize ahead of time. So the detail die that I have to put over the top of this has not been completely knocked out yet because I had to recut it when the water spilled. But here it is. And I'm going to peel away. So I used an adhesive sheet on the back. So hopefully that's going to help me clean this up in quick order. Some of it is going to. I'll probably still have to touch up a little bit of it. My original one was all prepared and ready to go. All right, so some of it peeled away, you see that? But I still need to, and when I say peeled away, I mean the part that doesn't need to be there, that is knocked out, or should be knocked out. But I still see a little bit here. And let's see, I want to be careful to not have that adhesive land on the piece that's underneath. So I'm sorry you're having to watch this part. So it looks like we're good there. The room that I'm in is carpeted, so that was especially fun. Oh goodness, let's see. Oh, that works. See if I can get those stuck to my fingers, then I can just peel them off my fingers. So this is the 12 by 12, let's see, what was it called? Glimmer. This was the Glimmer 12 by 12 specialty paper. This is in the mini catalog, the July through December mini catalog. Now, I love a sparkly Christmas card myself. It doesn't necessarily need to be blingy, but I do like it to be sparkly. And let's see, get those unstuck. So you can see this is quite flexible. So I am going to have to be careful and maybe apply from one side to another. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up my pine cones. That's the part that I want to make sure is lined up. The other can just look like snow on a branch, and that wouldn't necessarily be in a precise location. Let's see. Let me turn this a little bit. So I applied the adhesive sheet to the back of the Glimmer paper before I ran it through the cut and emboss machine. And that effectively turned this into a sticker, so I don't have to apply any adhesive to the back. Now, I could have done that to the back of the green as well. See, look at that, it's already stuck down. Isn't that beautiful? But I found that when I created my sample card, it was easy enough just to apply my multi-purpose adhesive to the back. And I am going to just turn this over and give this a little squish this way to make sure I've got that adhesive hitting everywhere. And you can see that not everything is lined up, and I am way okay with that. Whoops. Way okay with that. Pull up our card front again. Well, actually, let's put some adhesive on this first. And so Cheryl, you said you've been a demonstrator since 2015. I bet you've seen a lot of changes in the company. They are so wonderful. Are you going to be at Onstage? I would love to know that. I'm going to the Vancouver, BC event. Let's see. I am now going to flip this over. And I'm just going to center that on there. And give it just a second. While that is adhering, looking for my ribbon, there it is, I'm going to grab my satin edged ribbon. This is the very vanilla with gold. I believe this was in the mini catalog too. And I am going to cut this piece. If you've watched me before, you know that I like to adhere my ribbon with Scotch tape on the back. So I'm just going to flip this over. I'm going to lay down my ribbon, flip this over, and I'm just kind of sort of centering it. And I am not promoting the brand Scotch tape. It just happens to be the brand that I have on hand. And there we go. I am going to go ahead and apply my dimensionals to the back of, so was something a little off? No, it's okay. My dimensionals to the back of this card front. Because once I apply, and I'm going to use a lot. This is a heavy card. This is a heavy card front, and I don't want it to crush. So you're going to see me use a lot of dimensionals. And I'm not even going to apologize for it. And once you make this card, you'll see how heavy it is. All right, so I'm going to use my take your pick tool and take these off. I love myself a glittery Christmas card. And this one is, or shiny, like the next one is gold and this one is iridescent glitter. I'm going to bring over my card base. Now, remember my card base folded is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. This card front is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. There is only an 1/8 of an inch difference, and so you're going to want to be real careful in your placement. There we go. And look at that. Lovely. I am then going to place some dimensionals. Oh, what happened there? I've got a little mark on my sentiment. Oh, and I did tell you I was going to explain my process. So I will do that now. So for this sentiment, you can see that I heat embossed with gold. I'm going to show you. From Brightest Glow, I used the Merry Christmas right here. And in the bundle are these dies, and there are 2 labels dies. This one I used on this card, and this one I used on the other 2 cards. So I am going to apply dimensionals across the top and across the bottom. I'm going to straddle the ribbon, that's why I'm doing it that way. and take off my backs. See, once you've done all your cutting, this doesn't take long to put together. So as I mentioned at the beginning, this is a free class. With a purchase of $35, I will send you the make and takes ×2. So 3 designs, 2 of each design, plus the envelopes for the cards that I'm making today. That's with a purchase of $35 or more, so that's 6 cards. All right, I can go ahead and make my bow, and I'm looking for my bow maker, which I covered up. I have this handy dandy bow maker that my friend Ron makes on his 3D printer. Love, love, love my bow maker. I do sell these for him if you are interested. The price of everything is going up, right? Supply, demand, shipping, whatever reason you want to give it. Anyway, and I do have to, so these were $6.50 a piece, and then the cost of shipping, but I've had to raise them to $7.50 for the bow maker. If you are interested, and I have white, green, red, and this kind of clear, crystal-y looking color. Okay, my mini glue dots behind. And I'm going to put it right there. I love this card so much. I think it's so pretty. Normally, my husband only likes traditional Christmas colors, and he liked this card last night too. All right. So there is our front. No need to put any, excuse me, need to drink of water. No need to put any gems or anything on the front of this card. It's got plenty of bling, but I do need to create the inside of my card. So I have a matte layer, and I have a message liner. My matte layer, if I remember correctly, was 4 by 5 1/4, and my message liner is 1/8 of an inch smaller. So it would, excuse me, be 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. I need to stamp a sentiment, which I did not. This is my favorite one. This is the one I'm going to use in the majority of my Christmas cards. It's "May the peace of the season light your world, and may your new year be the brightest." Isn't that beautiful? I think it's beautiful. And I'm going to stamp using Soft Succulent. Right, let's see how straight I get this. If I'm not, I will flip it over. Ooh, not bad. I would say that is very acceptable. Close up my ink, so I do not need another accident to take place. Let's adhere that to my matte layer. One of the big promotions going on with Stampin' Up! Right now is they have a joining special. So if you want 20% off on your craft supplies, you can join, and you don't have to run a business like I do. You can be a hobby demonstrator. It's totally up to you. And the special this month is you spend $99 and get $155 worth of products that you get to choose, and you get free shipping on that order. So if you are looking for a way to save money on your craft supplies, joining Stampin' Up! Is a really great way to do that. All right, card number 1 is complete. I hope you like it. I hope you love it. I love it. I am going to set that aside and quickly bring over card number 2. So this is the card we're going to make next. Give me just a moment here. The embossed layer that is the card front, I used the Timber 3D embossing folder for that. And this one, you'll see that I'm not using that full-size piece, which means that we're going to do a little bit of slicing and dicing. So here's that 3D embossing folder. It's got beautiful wood grain. I love this embossing folder. I use it a lot. Okay, we're going to move this off to one side. We're going to bring in the card base. The card base is 5.5 by 8.5. We are scored at 4 1/4, and this is a top fold card. So I am going to just burnish my score line real quick. Let's see, somewhere I have set my bone folder down, but I have many. And there we go. There's our card base. Here is our card front. As I mentioned, I had already embossed it, so it's ready to go. Now here is that shadow in the Evening Evergreen Glimmer 12 by 12 specialty paper. So this is the same, this paper is in the same pack as that iridescent that was in the last card. There's also a gold glimmer in this package as well. There's, let me double check, I think there's 2 of each sheet. There is a total of six. Matter of fact, you can, I've just dropped something. There's a piece of the gold, there's the green, there's the iridescent. So in order to turn this into a square instead of a rectangle, I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to trim from the back. And I just need to trim a little bit. Excuse me. Let's see. And when it's in your hands, you'll be able to find where you think that needs to be. Now, this might look like I'm wasting this, but I actually had another project that I was working on. I'll flash it to you really quickly. So I belong to a group of demonstrators that put together a monthly tutorial bundle, and that is offered to our customers for free with a $50 purchase. And this is the card that I'm submitting for November. So that's where my little extra piece went. So no waste. And before I attach that to that, I'm going to, let's see, make sure again, same as before, my original piece got wet when the water spilled, so I had to recut it, and I didn't get everything cleaned up before this video, before I started my YouTube. I think I just need to cut these two, if I'm correct. I am correct. Okay. So I just need to cut this and this. There we go. Now I'm going to do just like I did on the last one and just peel off that back and see how much I have left to clean up. See if I can find a good spot to grab it at. A lot of this is probably going to pull out. See, a lot of it did, but I do see a few pieces still that need my help. So I'm just going to let it stick to my finger, well, if it will, stick to my finger and pull out. Don't want to, there we go. And I would be worried about the oil on my hands degrading the adhesive that's on the back of this, but, well, ooh, I don't want that. There we go. My hands were so wet, I don't think there's much oil left on them at the moment. Oh, my goodness. All right, is everybody laughing? I hope so. So now I'm flicking all this off into the garbage can. Silliness, silliness. It could have been worse. It could have gone beyond what it did. Because only about 3 feet farther from where it happened, I have my paper is all stored. Not at floor level, but regardless. All right, I'm just lining, just like I did last time, I'm lining up the pine cones right over that glimmer, and I'm not worried about it all being exact, because I want it to show. I want it to show from underneath. All right. Oh my gosh, did I really just do that? I forgot to put let's see if I can still get it apart. I forgot to put the, ooh, I can. Ooh, that's what I get for talking so much. I need to apply my white pine cones. How many people were watching just now going, no, 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 you forgot it, you forgot it. Oh my gosh. All right. So just like before, adding a little bit of adhesive and lining up to the pine cone in the shadow. There we go. This is looking right now. Throw that away. My husband and I will be relocating the end of February. We're super excited about it. And one of the benefits to our move is that the intention is that I won't have to share my craft room with my husband. So this was actually his room before it was my room. And so that's why there's hydroplane stuff everywhere. We are involved in hydroplane racing. We love it. We do it together as a couple. He races. I'm a crew member. Anyway, we've been in this place for 8 years, and I've only been a demonstrator for 3, and I had not started stamping until right before I joined. And then, of course, there was a pandemic and all of those fun things that everybody's more than familiar with and tired of talking about. But all of my stuff has been just squished in around his stuff. And when we relocate, I will have a dedicated filming area and a dedicated picture taking area and all of that kind of thing. And I don't have that now. I have to reset up the room every time, which I'm glad to do. I'm grateful for what I've got. I'm not ungrateful at all, but it will be nice when it's a little bit more convenient. All right, got that done. And I'm glad that that gold came off as easy as it did. There. Now, I'm going to give that an extra second to adhere because it is on glitter and not paper to paper. Well, this will be easier to line up than it was before. And there we go. That looks about right. This one could come over just a skosh. There we are. Flip that over. And now, doesn't that have just such a beautiful, rich look to it? Look at that. You see that iridescent popping through and then that shadow. This will be the top of my card. This will be the bottom of my card. And I am going to use my multi-purpose adhesive again. And don't need a ton, but enough. Definitely need to make sure I've got enough. And so if I wanted the edges of my shadow to be stuck down even with the paper, adhesive sheet on the back of this might have been a good idea too. But that's not the look that I was going for. I actually like it when it's lifted a little bit off of the edges. I think it gives it dimension. Thank you, Polly. Yeah, eventually, I'm less than 5 months from that happening. That will be amazing. So good to see your name pop up. And I'm just going to hold that down just for a second. Thank you. Yes, this is a big deal for my husband and I to make that move. It puts us much closer to our friends. There's a huge crafting community over there. There's a big boat racing community over there. It will cut down on how much traveling my husband and I do during the boat racing. There's so many good reasons for us to be over there. I'm going to do exactly like I did before. I'm going to center my ribbon. I'm going to Scotch tape it to the back. I'm actually going to flip that ribbon because it wants to curl a little. My husband writes. He's a writer he's a groundskeeper for a living, but he writes hydroplane stories for a hobby for national publication. And so I had created this room for him for inspiration and for him to keep all of his memorabilia and that sort of thing. So it's a really cool room. It's just was never intended to be to have me squatting in the center of it. There we go. There's that beautiful ribbon. Now I'm going to put dimensionals on the back of this so that we can apply this to the front of the card. And this one's not quite as heavy. I will use a lot of dimensionals, but it's not as heavy as the last card. And then use my Take Your Pick tool again. I am just loving the very vanilla and the evening evergreen and soft succulent and gold. It's just all so beautiful together. Oops, my head hit the camera, sorry. All right. So, as I mentioned before, this card is a top fold card. I'm not sure that I gave you the dimensions of this embossed card front layer. It's 4 by 5 1/4. There we go. Now here is my, I pre-stamped and heat embossed, and I should just give you, I'll just give you a quick rundown on how I did that. So as I already mentioned, I pulled the sentiment and this label die from the Brightest Glow bundle. But what I did to create this is I took a piece of Evening Evergreen, I stamped with Versamark ink, or no, excuse me, I took the Evening Evergreen, I used my embossing buddy and rubbed it over the cardstock to take away any of the static electricity. Then I stamped my sentiment using the Versamark ink. Then using this tray, I poured my gold embossing powder over the top. I tapped off any excess. Then I used my heat tool. I used, mind you, this piece of paper was still bigger at that time, and I used my tweezers to hold this, used my heat tool so that it melted the powder so that it looks like what you see now. Then I put my die, my label die on this. I used Post-it tape to hold it in place and ran it through my cut and emboss machine. And that is how I made that label. Back to my card. I'm going to put a cup, because this label is quite a bit more narrow than the last card, where I was able to apply my dimensionals on each side of the label and straddle the ribbon. This one I'm not able to do that. So I'm going to use a couple of mini glue dots underneath the ribbon to hold the ribbon in place, and I'm going to kind of strategically place it where I don't have glimmer and I don't have, did I just put that in a crooked spot? Looks like it. Mind you, the label is going to be over the top of this. Come on. Well, I didn't make this mistake the first time I did this. Okay, when I put this over there, are you even going to be able to tell? Not much, but a little bit. Just trying to lift it without ripping anything. I bet I am making some people cringe. Sorry, everybody. There, that's better. I will be more careful with the placement of my second one. All right, there we go. So now I can put some dimensionals on the back of, it looks a little crooked at the moment, but when I put this over the top, you're not going to be able to see that. And I didn't run into that issue earlier. It's only because I'm trying to make up time for getting on late. Take off my, okay, come on. Take off my backs. There we go. Season's Greetings, which I just think looks so rich. There we go. Season's Greetings. And now I just need a bow. Again, I'm not going to use any gems because it's already so glittery and shiny and rich looking. Using my bow maker again. So again, these first two cards were made using the Christmas Pinecone dies. And the third card is from the Christmas season stamp set. And my bow right there. And now I can stamp. The inside, I'm not using a matte layer. I'm just using a single layer of cardstock that is cut 4 to 5 1/4 inches. I'm going to grab my Evening Evergreen. I'm going to use the same sentiment that I used on the last card. I think it's almost time to ink this up. Not quite though. And That's a little crooked. Let's try that again. Let's see, and I was pointing up. Okay. That is much better. Close up my ink pad. Make sure, yep. I have an abundance of autumn and Halloween cards that I'm about to send out. And I'm excited to send them out. They all turned out so beautiful this year. I'm glad to be working on Christmas already, but I really did love those cards. So card number 2 is complete. Do you like it? I hope. Let me know if you do. Okay, I am now going to clean up and switch gears. And we're going to make this card next. I love this card too. I really, really do. Okay. So our card base on this one is 11 by 4 1/4, scored at 5 1/2. So I'm going to take a second to line up those edges and burnish that. So if there's any demonstrators on here, let me know if you're going to on stage or not, and if you are, which one are you going to? I'm going to be at the one in Vancouver, BC. Let's see, looking through the camera to make sure you can see. So here's Christmas season. There are no sentiments in this stamp set. That's why I'm pulling from lights, from Brightest Glow. I'm going to be using this fir branch and this large pine cone, and there's two-step stamping to this pine cone. So that's what I'm using. Get my pine cone set up. And a quick drink of water. All right, so I am going to start by stamping my 2 pine cones. I'm going to start with Early Espresso, and there are 2 different stamps. Let me pull up the black and white here so it's a little easier to see. This is the one that I'm going to start off by using the Early Espresso, and then this one I'm going to go in and fill in using Soft Suede. I've played around a lot with this, and this is the best pine cones that I came up with. Let's see. Gosh, my original samples got water all over them, so they're not worth me showing to you now. But anyway, so I'm going to start with the pine cones, and I'm looking at my original sample, and I see approximately how far up I need to go from the edge of this is to the bottom of the corner of the pine cone is approximately 1 inch. So Early Espresso first. And you see those little whitish spots that are in here? That's actually part of the kind of distressed look of the stamp. And one more. And this one I'm going to raise up just a little bit. I came over too far. Let me double check the size of my paper. I came over too far. Let me redo that. And this one I'm just going to come up a little bit. And those look approximately centered from side to side. One is intended to be a little bit taller than the other. Close up the early espresso and open up the soft suede. Yeah, soft suede. I was using soft succulent earlier. I want to make sure I'm saying the right thing. And I kind of feel like I could do that one more time. That's good. All right. I'll take this off because I know I'm going to need it for my sentiment. And close this up, and I'm going to pull out that evening evergreen again. And I'm going to add my little fir branches now. So I'm going to stamp solid color and then stamp secondary or stamp off, which will just create a little bit of fullness. So like that and like that. And do the same thing over here. And I'm gonna add a little bit more in here. Going to fill in this space right here and then use that for a stamp off. And there we go. My fir branches are complete on this piece. We'll close that up for a few minutes. We will revisit that when we start to work on the inside. So on this one, I'm not wrapping the ribbon around. I'm just going to place my sentiment on dimensionals and then the bow and the gems. But first I'm going to mat this, and there are a couple of layers of mat here. You'll see that I have the evening evergreen and then I have the gold foil. So I'll start by adhering this to the evening evergreen. So my husband is a groundskeeper at the Portland Temple, and it's planting season right now for the spring. So they've been putting in thousands and thousands of bulbs and then putting in the winter flowers over the top. I'm going to lift this up and make sure that that is straight. There we go. And my sweetheart husband has, I'm going to let that dry for just a second because I've got some raised edge because I flipped the paper over. And when you use the paper trimmer to cut the paper, you end up with one little ridged edge. And now my ridges are all pointing up, so I want to correct that. Anyway, my husband, man, the leg cramps last night, holy man, I felt so bad for him. All right. But I'm so proud of what he does. I didn't see that I got a little bit of ink right there. I have, it's barely, I'm going to raise it up to see if maybe you can see it. Can you see? There's just barely a little bit of something right here that scooched across that paper. I have a sand eraser here, and I'm going to remove it using the sand eraser. There we go. Now I can apply adhesive to the back of the evening evergreen, and it's going to apply to the gold. You know, I think I said that this was gold foil, and it's not. This is from the Brush Metallic pack. And while that is drying, I'm going to pull out a ruler and give you some measurements on these layers that you just saw me put together. So that this layer that I stamped on is 4 3/4 by 3 1/2. The matte layer, the green, the evening evergreen, is 4 7/8 by 3, it looks like 3 5/8. 3 3/3, excuse me. Then the gold layer is 5 1/4 by 4. And it is now ready to go on the front of, actually, let me turn that over and give that a little squish. Make sure. Foil, you don't adhere to that quite as quickly. It takes a second for it to dry. There we go. So this is a side fold. I am going to apply dimensionals to the back. And this one is not as heavy as the others at all, so I don't need, I can use just my standard amount of dimensionals. We're almost done, my friends. There we go. Going to the, oh yeah, that's awesome, Cheryl. That's where my husband and I were sealed at. It's pretty cool. I'm pretty proud of what he does for a living. All right, I am now going to, and I think our friends are pretty, I'm going to use the word impressed. It's not technically what we mean, but because we try not to be proud, but it's pretty sweet. It's a pretty humbling experience that he gets to have an impact on people's days, you know, change their countenance, but as they leave the outside world behind before they go in and do the work that they need to do. All right, I'm going to place my sentiment here at the base of my pine cones and try to get it straight, and I'm pretty straight. Going to put another bow on here. So Cheryl, are you near here? Are you near the Portland area? All right. One of the reasons that we're looking to move is because it's just become too much for my husband to commute from Vancouver to Lake Oswego on a daily basis. And there's just so much traffic. And there are some days that it takes over 2 hours to get home. So sometimes you just have to know when to call it quits and move on to something else. He's a couple years from retirement. All right, mini glue dots. Here they are. And I'm just going to stick that bow right there on the edge of the sentiment. And I'm going to use the gold gems from the, what's printed on here is not what they're actually called. They're called Festive Adhesive Back Pearls. Festive Adhesive Back Pearls. And they have the red, this is soft succulent here, silver and gold. And I'm going to use the gold because that's kind of the theme of my cards today. One of the themes. And I'm going to use the clay end of the Take My Pick tool to pick up my gems, putting one right in the center there. There we go. So the front of our card is done. Now we need to do the inside. So the inside, I'm going to stamp the sentiment first in case I have to flip it, and then I will do the fir branches in the edge, in the corners. Oh, there it is. It was sitting right up there, patiently waiting for me to notice it. So I'm using the Evening Evergreen ink. All of my cardstock base, well no, I almost said that wrong. I'm using Very Vanilla. And oh, did I get lucky? I think I got lucky. That looks pretty good. So now I'm going to pull in the fir branch, and I need, because I'm stamping off of the edge of the cardstock. So I'm going to stamp along the edge, fill in with the stamp off, stamp next to it, and stamp off. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. And there we are. Close up my ink and adhere. This to the mat. Straighten that out a little bit. Exactly why I like to use the green glue, the multi-purpose adhesive. It gives me time to get things in place. Let that sit for just a second. I sure hope you all have liked these cards. I loved designing them. And there we are. There's card number 3. Let me pull in those other 2 cards. The first 2 cards. And here we go, my friends. We have now completed the cards. So, as I mentioned before, this was a free class. I am offering, with a purchase of $35 in my online store, I will send you all of the die cuts and the cardstock and the pre-cut labels. Thank you so much, Polly. I will send. I will emboss with the embossing folder, not heat embossing. I can't stamp anything. I can't apply ink to anything, but I can die cut and cut your cardstock, send you your ribbon, pre-tie your bow, send you these gems. And if you make a purchase of $35 or more, I will send you not only the make and takes for these 3 designs, but I will send you the make and takes for 2 each of these 3 designs. All right? My friends, I thank you so much for joining me today. You mean the world to me, and I just appreciate you all. Please stay safe and be well. Hugs.